The 1904 Olympics were the first to be held outside of Europe. The Games were awarded to Chicago, Illinois. Meanwhile, St. Louis, Missouri was busy planning the St. Louis World's Fair, also known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition.
A budget over $150 million in today's dollars would be used to stage the largest World's Fair ever up until that time. It would be open from April 30th to December 1st and cover over 1,200 acres of land, have 1,500 buildings with 75 miles of walkways and roadways, and have participants from 50 countries and 43 of the then 45 United States.
And they wanted to have the Olympics be part of the World Fair. After threatening to hold their own sports events and thoroughly shade the Chicago Games, the founder of the International Olympic Committee eventually stepped in, took the 1904 Olympics away from Chicago, and awarded the Games to St. Louis. The Games were held as part of a larger sporting event that went from July 1st to November 23rd, 1904. Olympic Games were scheduled from August 29th through September 3rd. Few top athletes outside the U.S. and Canada traveled to St. Louis for these games. The Russo-Japanese War and difficult travel are reasons often given for this, but one has to wonder if the fair had anything to do with it.
Boxing made its Olympic debut at these games, and other events were aquatics, which included both swimming and diving, archery, football, golf, gymnastics, lacrosse, rowing, cycling, fencing, tennis, wrestling, tug of war, weightlifting, and athletics and roque. Athletics included what we now call track and field sports, and roque was a tournament similar to croquet. It was the only time this event was held at the Olympic Games.
Because some of the American athletes had not received their citizenship, lists of the number of countries participating has differed over the years. The current list includes Australia, Austria, Canada, Cuba, France, Germany, Great Britain, Greece, Hungary, South Africa, and Switzerland, and the United States. Out of the 651 athletes competing, 526 were American and 56 Canadian. This was the first Olympics to award medals in gold, silver, and bronze for first, second, and third place.
It was a unique Olympics from the beginning, and would go from unique to bizarre to dangerous. This would be the third marathon in modern Olympics. At the time, there was no standard length for the race. St. Louis Marathon was 24.8 miles or 40 kilometers. It would start with 5 laps around the track and then move to unpaved roads, eventually ending back at the stadium. It was called the most difficult course ever.
The runners were an odd group. Only 4 Americans had marathon experience. Arthur Newton had participated in the 1900 Olympics marathon, while 3 others had run in Boston marathons. 10 Greek men lined up. None had ever run a marathon before. 2 men from South Africa, who were actually part of the South Africa Fair exhibit, ran. One of them barefoot.
Ow!
A man from Cuba showed up at the start, wearing a long-sleeve shirt, long pants, a hat, and dress shoes. Fortunately for him, one of his competitors found a pair of scissors and cut his pants into shorts.
Well, that's good, because he was flat broke. He had already lost all of his money gambling when he arrived to the U.S. and started to hitchhike from New Orleans to St. Louis. Another American athlete had only run at night. A total of 40 men from 7 countries were listed as race participants. 8 did not start, bringing the total to 32 runners from 4 countries. By 3 p.m. on August 30th, the temperature was a steamy 90 degrees. The runners completed their laps around the track, proceeded to the winding roads of the rest of the course. Horses were first out of the stadium, going ahead to clear the roads. Next came the cars with Olympic officials, trainers, doctors, and others. There was only one place on the course to get water, a roadside well at about the 12-mile mark. You may be thinking you know what's coming from this description, but it's more bizarre than you think.
The route is on unpaved roads with dust inches deep in places. Runners have to avoid spectators, animals, cars, trains, and trolleys. There are multiple hills along the route. In some places, stones have been put on the road. The horses and cars leading the runners kick up so much dust it seems like fog.
9 miles into the race, American Fred Lors was suffering debilitating cramps, unable to continue. He hops into one of the cars and spends the next 10 miles waving at the roadside spectators and other runners.
"10 miles into the race, American Thomas Hicks begs his trainers for a drink of water. They refuse. Also at 10 miles, runner John Lauren becomes violently ill and drops out of the race.
Along the route, the Cuban runner is having quite a good time. He stops to talk to spectators and eats apples he took from a field. The apples are bad, and he gets horrible stomach cramps. He curls up on the side of the road and has to take a nap.
At about mile 16, Sam Mellor, one of the American runners and the guy in the lead at the halfway mark, starts running backwards along the route. Exhausted, thinking he took a wrong turn somewhere, he drops out of the race.
Around mile 19, American William Garcia, overcome by the dust and heat, collapses on the side of the road and begins coughing up blood. He is rushed to the hospital with dust in his esophagus and lungs, a torn stomach lining. Emergency surgery saves his life.
And somewhere around the 19-mile mark, the car Fred Lawrence was in breaks down. Refreshed from his nearly 10-mile ride, he decides to rejoin the race.
Somewhere along the route, South African runner Len Tau is chased nearly a mile off course by wild dogs.
At some point between miles 14 and 18, Thomas Hicks becomes desperately dehydrated. His trainers stop him from lying down and quitting the race. For the rest of the race, they give him small doses of strychnine, laced with brandy and possibly egg whites. Strychnine is a nervous system stimulant in small doses. It's also a very powerful poison. He would start hallucinating in the next few miles and could barely walk, but he went on.
The first to cross the finish line back at the stadium is Fred Lors. Some reports state he actually jogged into the stadium. It wasn't until he was having his picture taken with then President Roosevelt's daughter that his cheating was discovered. He admitted everything when asked, saying he was just joking around. He was banned and disqualified. He was later banned from amateur athletics for life for cheating. The ban would be reduced for 1 year, and he would continue to run marathons.
Meanwhile, Thomas Hicks' support team was carrying him, his feet moving like he was still running, over the finish line. His time was 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds. He was declared the winner, carried off the track, and immediately treated by doctors. He had lost 8 pounds during the race.
Albert Corey of France finished second at 3 hours, 34 minutes, and 32 seconds, with Arthur Newton of the United States taking third at 3 hours, 47 minutes, and 33 seconds. The Cuban runner, despite his frequent stops to nap, took 4th place. Runners took hours to finish this course.
2 records were set in the 1904 marathon: the lowest number of participants to compete in an event, and the slowest marathon time by far. Fortunately, all the participants survived, despite the poor planning, poor route, lack of water, and at that time not banned use of drugs. It's perhaps the most unique, bizarre, and dangerous event of the modern Olympic Games.